Egypt's president and Bahrain's king discuss the Gaza ceasefire, reconstruction and regional stability. Trump-Netanyahu summit kicks off with Gaza ceasefire and detainee negotiations at center stage. And the Palestinian Prime Minister emphasizes international efforts against Israeli violations. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Q News, and we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has highlighted the humanitarian crisis and the importance of Gaza's reconstruction. This came as al-Sisi spoke with Bahrain's King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, where they discussed efforts to implement the Gaza ceasefire agreement. They also reviewed regional issues including Syria, Lebanon, Libya and Sudan, stressing the need for stability and avoiding further conflict in these countries. The two leaders emphasized the deep bilateral relations between Egypt and Bahrain, focusing on economic and investment cooperation. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has announced that Egypt will host an international conference for Gaza's reconstruction. During a press conference with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Ankara, Abdelati emphasized that the Gaza ceasefire must coincide with the delivery of humanitarian aid and medical aid. He called for political will to respect the agreement, rejected any attempts to displace Palestinians. Abdelati also highlighted Egypt's commitment to supporting the Palestinian cause and regional stability in Libya, Lebanon and Syria. Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi has hoped the ceasefire in Gaza leads to lasting peace. Speaking alongside the Greek counterpart, George Yeripilateris, Safadi emphasized the priority of delivering aid to Gaza and reinforcing the ceasefire. He reiterated Jordan's commitment to working with the United States for a just peace based on a two-state solution. Yeripilateris highlighted Gaza's reconstruction and reaffirmed Jordan's role as a stabilizing and essential regional partner. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has thanked Egypt for its efforts in achieving a Gaza ceasefire and highlighted its crucial role in delivering humanitarian aid. In a joint press conference with Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati in Ankara, Fidan emphasized the impact of forced displacement of Palestinians on regional peace, reaffirming Turkey's commitment to sustaining the ceasefire and condemned Israeli actions in the West Bank. Fidan also discussed the need for Syria to become stable and secure, stressing the foreign intervention only brings instability. Fidan stated that Turkey's relationship with Egypt is growing stronger each day, with efforts to enhance cooperation across all sectors, including defense, industries, energy, and regional issues. U.S. President Donald Trump is holding a joint press conference at the White House with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, following their meeting. Netanyahu's visit to Washington comes at a time when the ceasefire in Gaza is still holding, and mediators have begun negotiations on the second phase of the deal, which aims to free all the remaining detainees and end the war on Gaza.
Thank you.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has planned to convene a ministerial meeting upon returning from Washington. The meeting is intended to deliberate on the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. These recent developments come after what was described as a positive meeting with Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, in Washington. Netanyahu extended his trip to the United States till Saturday and is expected to head back to Israel on February the 8th. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has announced that Tel Aviv is preparing to send a high-level delegation to Qatar's Doha to discuss implementing the Gaza ceasefire agreement. The original terms of the first phase of the agreement include a 42-day ceasefire and a detainee exchange. Talks are expected to focus on the agreement's second phase, paving the way for a potential end to the ongoing conflict. Leader of Israel's Yisrael Beitenu party, Avigdor Lieberman, has claimed that Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington aims to derail the second phase of the detainee exchange deal. Lieberman argued that Netanyahu's sole priority is the survival of his governing coalition. Israeli Minister for Settlement Affairs Orit Struk has threatened Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with collapsing his government if he proceeds with the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Struk warned that if Netanyahu moves forward with the deal, she will act to topple the government, by so highlighting the deep opposition of the Israeli far right to ending the war in Gaza. Netanyahu faces growing domestic pressure to not end the war, especially from Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who called the deal with Hamas catastrophic and a threat to Israeli security. Hamas has accused Israel of stalling on the humanitarian aspects of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. In a statement, Hamas stated that Israel's efforts fall far below the agreed minimum, showing clear disregard for humanitarian commitments. Hamas highlighted Israel's deliberate delays in allowing essential supplies like tents, prefab homes, fuel, and heavy equipment to clear rubble. Gaza's devastation, particularly in the north, underscores the urgent need for relief efforts under the ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Washington visit marks a critical juncture in U.S.-Israel relations amid regional challenges,
with substantial implications for the Middle East. His meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump comes amid critical regional challenges, including fragile ceasefire agreements in Gaza and Lebanon, as well as concerns over Iran's nuclear program. The discussions focused on the truce between Israel and Hamas, brokered by Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. to halt hostilities, conduct a detainee exchange, and allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. However, President Trump has expressed doubts about the ceasefire's durability, stating there are no guarantees it will hold. Netanyahu, meanwhile, faces internal pressure from members of his governing coalition, who are divided between maintaining the ceasefire and resuming hostilities in Gaza. These talks could either strengthen the truce or expose ongoing barriers to regional stability and integration. International reactions to the visit are mixed. Arab nations have voiced apprehension, particularly about potential U.S.-Israeli proposals that could further complicate the Palestinian cause. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's visit serves domestic purposes. Facing a corruption trial in internal divisions, the trip allows him to showcase strong ties with the US and secure further American support. But critics argue it may distract from pressing internal matters in Israel and jeopardize any chances for launching a serious peace process in the region. Ultimately, Netanyahu's visit is pivotal, with US-Israel and how they will reflect on efforts to maintain de-escalation and regional stability.
For more analysis, we now move to Hani in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Hela. For further analysis on the Netanyahu-Trump summit, we're joined from Cairo by Editor-in-Chief of Ash-Shuruq newspaper and the Egyptian Senator Ahmededdin Hussein. Welcome to Q News, Mr. Hussein. What do you think, sir? What do you expect from the upcoming press conference between Trump and Netanyahu today at the White House?
Peace be upon you all. Greetings to you and your esteemed viewers. Naturally, I expect that Trump will try to say to Netanyahu the maximum of gifts, if I may say. Netanyahu has a specific agenda that he wants to continue the war following the first phase, and it need to justify the plan of the dominations over Gaza. And America's admission is clear of Israeli rights in the Israeli settlement in the West Bank. He wishes from President Trump to the idea of displacing the Gaza Strip and the West Bank to the neighboring country or to other countries, and therefore to have an end of the Palestinian cause completely. And the personal perspective that Netanyahu might want from Trump to get the biggest reward, which is to assist Israel of the nuclear program of Iran, because it represents the biggest issue for him, and to direct more of the Iranians arms in the region, such as the Houthis in Yemen, some strikes that extended to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the fall of al-Assad in Syria. These are the main Israeli demands. What will Trump would agree upon? It is troubled for the Arab. What has been reported from Trump by saying that Israel did a great work and it's in a small country that need to be expanded. This aren't pleased news for the Arab countries and peoples, and therefore if this matter was translated on the ground, I think it will create a great issue, and the American President will support in the far right wing in Israel, and if this scenario happened, that would trigger more troubles in the whole region.
Mm-hmm. Well, sir, how do you view Netanyahu's disruption of the second phase of the ceasefire negotiations in Gaza, and do you think that the Trump administration will actually endorse a potential annexation of parts of the West Bank?
Israel, it is actually what surprised that transferred a great portion into the West Bank. There is taken advantage after the resistance which by propagating the settlers so the resistance will retaliate. So Israel will exploit this matter to do systematic destruction, even if it is less size compared to what happened in Gaza. But now reports talking about destroying the roads, facilities, tents and shelters to reshape the region. The same scenario that was implemented in Gaza in general, particularly in the north, now it's taking place in Jenin and other cities. And Israel relentlessly, not only to kill the resistance or targeting the facilities, but by targeting the infrastructure of Palestine in order to transfer the West Bank that in a place that is not appropriate for life. And Trump might say that the Gaza people live in a hell, so it's a time to be displaced in somewhere else until the reconstruction of Gaza to take place.
Mr. Hussein, now, given Netanyahu's continued non-compliance with previous and current agreements, could there be any disruption in the new phase of the detainee exchange scheduled for next Saturday?
Yes, as we know, it's supposedly to start a negotiation on the second phase yesterday, in the 16th of the agreement. So it was postponed, and the maneuvering and news emerged from Israel says that Netanyahu decided to postpone until the end of the negotiations of the United States to come an end, and therefore will return to the negotiation. Reports in a few minutes says that the negotiation will start upon the arrival or the return of Netanyahu from Washington and to agree on the big lines of the agreement. This matter, Netanyahu is trying to take the maneuver and provoking the Palestinian side, trying to gain the most maximum concessions. The matter is not related to a day or 2 days due to the talks. The issue is related, is going to abide to the main principles of the agreement. This is the question that should be raised.
Mm-hmm. Well, in your view, what are the ultimate objectives of Israel's severe escalation in the West Bank? Mr. Hussein, in your view, what do you think are the main or ultimate objectives of Israel's severe escalation in the West Bank, especially at such a critical point, a shift, a transition from the first to the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement?
If I understood you very well, I think that the Israeli movement coming based on a very systematic plan to Jewishize the West Bank, which is the ultimate objective of Israel, maybe before Gaza. They call it Yehuda and Al-Samira, as considered as a public land. And the West Bank, Jewish is not actually related to Gaza-Israeli war, but previously. Well, have to consider what is called about the decisive plan backed by Symmetrich. Symmetrich has a very clear plan wrote it in 2017, and I think it's considered clearly on the far wing objectives in Israel, and I think that it might be adopted by President Trump in later on. This plan says that before Palestine, 3 choices. The first one is to live in the second class in Israel from the river to the sea, or to be deported out of the big Israel, or to kill whoever is going to object to these 2 choices. This is the actual thought of Israeli that some might see that it could be executed brutally or through luring or terrifying or using the stick and the carrot plan. So the settlers are getting the most vicious features of killing the Palestinian people, the homeland owners, and 2 main persons suspected bring fear following the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. When Netanyahu chooses these 2 persons, the first one responsible of the internal affairs and the second one of the financing affair, and which is to escalate and remind the West Bank is to be in livable place for the Palestinian and to confront this issues very important. The excessive population of the Palestinian. As you know, the Palestinian population in the historical land had become more than the Jewish people. This troubled Israel and interpreted why the far right, along with Trump, to execute what is called to deport the Palestinians outside Palestine.
From Cairo, that was editor-in-chief of the Shuruk newspaper and the Egyptian senator, Mr. Ahmed Hussein. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Qnews. Hela, back to you.
Thank you very much, Hani. And moving on with our news bulletin, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa has announced the formation of a committee to manage Gaza's affairs, underscoring national unity. Mustafa emphasized efforts to accelerate humanitarian aid, reopen roads, and prepare for reconstruction. He highlighted ongoing support for displaced people and services in Gaza despite 15 months of war. Regarding the West Bank, he condemned escalating Israeli crimes and announced diplomatic actions, emergency aid for displaced Palestinians, and renewed international efforts to expose Israeli violations and secure justice. UNRWA has reported its financial situation has worsened in recent months, with expectations of further deterioration even before the U.S. President Donald Trump's expected decision to continue suspending funding. UNRWA spokesman Julia Tuma stated that they will comment on the executive order once it is issued. Trump plans to stop future funding for the UN agency operating in Gaza and the West Bank, worsening the already dire financial conditions. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has revealed that Israel has plans for full control over the occupied West Bank. Speaking at the 14th Valdai Middle East Conference in Moscow, Lavrov emphasized the priority of establishing a Palestinian state based on international resolutions. He highlighted Gaza's devastating death toll of 46,000, surpassing Ukraine's conflict fatalities. Lavrov also acknowledged challenges in the Gaza ceasefire's second phase and reaffirmed the occupied Golan Heights and Syrian territory. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has condemned Israeli crimes targeting civilians, properties, and infrastructure in northern West Bank camps and villages, particularly in Jenin, Tul Karm, Tubas, and Al-Far'a and Tamun. The ministry highlighted forced displacement, homes demolitions, and violations of international law aimed at expanding Israeli settlements. It called on the international community to break its silence, hold Israel accountable, and stop systematic aggression threatening Palestinian existence while affirming Palestinians' steadfastness in their homeland. The Jenin Governorate has announced that 38 Palestinians have been killed since the Israeli aggression against the West Bank began, with the Israeli occupation continuing to demolish homes and use drones to drop grenades. Israeli occupation forces are also inspecting vehicles and tightening restrictions on citizens. Dozens of homes and streets in the Jenin refugee camp have been destroyed. The Israeli military aggression has entered 15th day sent to Al-Jalama checkpoint to resume the ongoing escalation. Meanwhile, Israeli drones have attacked two open areas in Tamun, south of Tubas, as the Israeli occupation's aggression continues against the town of Al-Far'a camp for the third day. Ambulances responded, but no injuries were reported. The Israeli occupation forces are conducting widespread raids, arrests, and destruction of infrastructure, closing all entrances to Tamun and deploying reinforcements. The siege of Al-Far'a camp persists, with significant damage to water and electricity lines. And And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. Egypt's president and Bahrain's king discuss the Gaza ceasefire, reconstruction, and regional stability. Trump-Netanyahu summit kicks off with the Gaza ceasefire and detainee negotiations at center stage. And the Palestinian Prime Minister emphasizes international efforts against Israeli violations. This concludes our news bulletin for this hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.